Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev. Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai, Jaya Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai, Jaya Maya. Jaya Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi, Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai, Jaya Maya Poshashi. Iskam Guru Vindaki, Jaya Shri Prabhupada ki, Shishi, Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi ki. So, reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. And this is thank you very much, Guru. I'm not sure where we were left. Calcutta, August 1917. For the first time in almost 3 years, Prabhupada returned to India, to Calcutta, his hometown. Although it was late and the journey had been long, Prabhupada felt happy as he descended the stairway from the airplane. Achyutananda and Jayapataka, his only American disciples in India, were standing on the airfield, and as they saw him approaching in his saffron silk robes, they bowed down. Prabhupada smiled and embraced them. Calcutta was in political turmoil. A group of communist terrorists, the Naxalites, had been rioting, murdering prominent businessmen, and threatening the lives of many others. Many wealthy Marwari industrialists were leaving the city for Delhi and Bombay. Aside from the terrorists, Bengali college students were growing unruly. But the older people of West Bengal, comprising most of Prabhupada's visitors, were alarmed by the violence and unrest. The only shelter Prabhupada told them was Krishna. People are in a very much perturbed condition, this is Srila Prabhupada. All of them are expecting me to do something for ameliorating the situation, but I'm simply advising them to chant Hare Krishna, because this transcendental sound is the only panacea for all material diseases. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 11, entitled The Transcendental Qualities of Vritasura, and its text 20. 22. Pumsam Kilakanta Diyam Swakanam Pumsam Kilakanta Diyam Swakanam Ya Sampado Divi Bumo Rasayam Ya Sampado Divi Bumo Rasayam Na rati yad dvesha udvega adya. Na rati yad dvesha udvega adya. Mada kalia vyasanam samprayasa. Mada kalia vyasanam samprayasa. Pumsam kalai kanta deyam swakanam. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasayam. Narati advesha udvega adya. Mada kalia vyasanam samprayasa. Pumsam kalai kanta diyam swakanam. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasaya. Narati advesha udvega adya. Mada kalya vyasanam sampriyasa. Pumsam kalai kanta diyam swakana. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasaya. Narati advesha udvega adya. Mada kalya vyasanam sampriyasa. Sam kalai kanta diyam swakana. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasaya. Vega adya. Mada kalya vyasanam sampriyasa. Diyam swakana. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasaya. Narati advesha udvega adya. Mada kalya vyasanam sampriyasa. Pumsam kalayanta diyam swakana. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasaya. Narati advesha udvega adya. Mada kalya asanam sampriyasa. Pumsam kale kanta diyam swakana. Yasam pado divi bhumo rasaya. Narati advesha udvega adya. Kali sampayasa. Pumsam kalai kanta smriyasa. Yasam pada divi bhumo rasaya. Narati advesha udvega adya. Vada kaya vasanam samprayasa. Pumsam unto persons. Kila, certainly. Ekantadiyam, who are advanced in spiritual consciousness, Swakanam, who are recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his own. Ya, which Sampada, opulences, Divi, in the upper planetary systems, Bhuma, in the middle planetary systems, Rasayam, and in the lower planetary systems. Na, not, Rati, bestows, Yat, from which, Dvaisha, envy, Udvega, anxiety, Adi, mental agitation, Mada, pride, Kali, quarrel, Vyasanam, distress due to loss, Samprayasa, great endeavor. Translation: persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increases enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. This one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. So, response, please. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. Sorry, lost it. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase. His enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. This one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions. And he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In Bhagavad Gita 4:11, the Lord says, Yayata mam prapajante, tamstate vibhajamayaham, mama vatmanivatante, manusha patasavashaha. As devotees surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Both Indra and Ritasura were certainly devotees of the Lord, although Indra took instructions from Vishnu to kill Ritasura. The Lord was actually more favorable to Ritasura because after being killed by Indra's thunderbolt, Ritasura would go back to Godhead, whereas the victorious Indra would rot in this material world. Because both of them were devotees, the Lord awarded them the respective benedictions they wanted. Ritasura never wanted material possessions, but he knew very well the nature of such possessions. To accumulate material possessions, one must labor very hard, and when he gets them, he creates many enemies, because this material world is always full of rivalry. If one becomes rich, his friends or relatives are envious. For ekanta bhaktas, unalloyed devotees, Krishna therefore never provides material possessions. A devotee sometimes needs some material possessions for preaching, but the possessions of a preacher are not like those of a karmi. A karmi's possessions are achieved as a result of karma, but those of a devotee are arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead just to facilitate his devotional activities. Because a devotee never uses material possessions for any purpose other than the service of the Lord, the possessions of a devotee are not to be compared to those of a karmi. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatrubhischa Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Prabhupada starts by quoting the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, as you surrender. He says, as devotees surrender. So that's interesting. It's normally all of them as they surrender. But in one sense, everyone's a devotee. And I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path. So Indra and Vritasura were both getting the rewards. And Krishna was able to keep them both satisfied at the same time. Although externally it would look like Indra was favored by the Lord, but from the spiritual perspective, Vritasura was favored by the Lord. So interesting how you don't always see what's going on. If you just look on the surface of things, and you see things are acting out, you may not be able to appreciate who is getting Krishna's mercy and who. Of course, everyone's getting Krishna's mercy, but how much of Krishna's mercy are they getting? And how much of Krishna's mercy can you take? Maybe Krishna wants to give you more mercy than you can take. So how can we increase our ability? There's a question for everybody. How can we increase our ability to take Krishna's mercy? We could get a bigger plate, and then we could get more prasadam. Yeah.
Try and change our vision so that we can actually see things as Krishna's mercy rather than just the workings of material nature.
Yeah, you could say that we're already getting Krishna's mercy, but maybe we don't appreciate it's Krishna's mercy. So how we develop the ability to appreciate Krishna's mercy is basically what Krishna consciousness is, because the nature of Krishna's mercy is that the more you appreciate it, then the more you get it. So if you're not appreciating it, yep. Yeah. If we're following what our Guru wants, so we should always be asking ourselves, would this please my Guru Maharaj? And if we're not sure, then we're maybe on thin ice. Always good to be checked out by your Guru Maharaj, if he's happy with you. I mean, we do have a line of authority, and the line of authority is from the spiritual master down through. Then we come through the GBC, and then we come through the temple president, and then finally we come down to our lowly selves. And sometimes we have to engage others also in devotional service. But it's interesting because leadership isn't the same as, like Srila Prabhupada saying here, the karmi. He has his, we had a boss when I was working, and I was working in Manchester, and this boss was a megalomaniac. You know what a megalomaniac is? You know what a megalomaniac? Megalomaniac. Means that they're power crazy. So he never did anything, and he had us doing everything, and nobody liked him. And so anyway, I left that job after a while. But a devotee may be put in a leadership role, but the leadership role means he has to serve more than anybody else. Confirmed. So you may think, wow, I wish I was in control. Then I could get everyone doing everything, and I could take it easy. But it's actually the opposite. And it's the same with possessions. If Krishna gives you a lot of facility, then you have more responsibility to try and deal with that facility, to to try and engage that in Krishna's service. So that creates more anxiety, and you have to raise your level of integrity. But it's interesting, Gauri Devi Dasi, Srila Prabhupada disciple, she was a very successful book distributor. And she said it's an interesting phenomena, Krishna's mercy, because Krishna is limited by the recipient's ability to take the mercy, because he may get the mercy, but then he may become puffed up and offensive. So then Krishna's thinking, okay, well, maybe I can't give him too much mercy, just enough to encourage him, but any more than that, and he'll step over the line.
To receive, would Krishna give us more mercy than we're able to receive?
Could Krishna give us more mercy than we can receive? Well, sometimes we may get more on our plate than we'd anticipated we could digest, and then we may get indigestion. So we may get spiritual indigestion, is that we're struggling to process that this is actually mercy. Sometimes you don't appreciate its mercy till hindsight, and then you reflect back and think, wow, that was really Krishna's mercy. But you maybe didn't appreciate it at the time. So Rupa Goswami advises being patient. Don't just write Krishna off on the spot. If this is Krishna's mercy, forget it. I'll go and get some of Maya's mercy instead. It may take a while, and also it's an acquired taste. Shak Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pito Patakta Rasanaja Narochikano. Rupa Goswami is saying there that the name is sweet, like sugar candy, Sita. Sita is sweet. But it may not taste sweet if you're in a jaundiced condition. But then you could also, if you're tasting something and it's not very sweet and you're in a diseased condition, then you think, okay, this is probably really good for me because it doesn't taste very pleasant. And then after a period of time, it does become very pleasant, you know. So you may see devotees swimming in the ocean of Sankirtan book distribution and see that they're really relishing it. But remember that they also had to start, and they also started from the same place that you're starting generally, maybe on rare occasions, but generally most devotees struggle when they first start doing Sankirtan and book distribution. They reflect back how they used to do it and how they do it now, and then they appreciate how much Krishna has intervened to empower them to do it. So don't be discouraged if you're trying to do something which is very difficult. And that's why the association of devotees is so helpful, because they can say, well, I experienced exactly the same thing. And I remember when I first was interested in Krishna consciousness, it wasn't until I read a BTG with a letter from somebody that was a postman outside that I realized that normal people can become devotees. I thought devotees were just like descended from Vaikuntha and they were all pure, and and then to find out normal people that have been in jobs and factories with megalomaniac bosses can also become devotees. So that was like a huge breakthrough for me, because I didn't appreciate that. So you may be rubbing shoulders with devotees that are experienced and accomplished in the art of book distribution, and you may find that a little off-putting, but you'll find if you confide in them that they've also had to go through a series of challenges and breakthroughs. You break through certain barriers on book distribution, and you realize you can do more than you thought you could, and you can speak better than you thought you could, and you can convince people better than you thought you could, and you know the philosophy better than you thought you did. So many things start to come into play with that special energy, that special magic. So yet it may seem like, see, Krishna's expert judge of time and circumstance. So sometimes our faith in that can be challenged when it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like he's a very expert judge of time and circumstance here with this situation. And then it may come later on when you reflect back, oh yeah, that was the perfect thing that Krishna did actually. But at the time I couldn't appreciate it, Okay.
So maybe you could give some advice to me, like in a moment where it seems too overwhelming, how to properly take shelter.
If you're feeling overwhelmed and you're wondering how to take shelter, well, it's interesting because a test is never a test unless it seems like you can't pass it. Otherwise, how's it a test? Kind of disqualifies itself as a test, isn't it? And there will be tests, if you haven't noticed it. It's kind of part of the course. Every step of the way, along the way, there's one test or another, you know. So for a test to be a real test, it has to seem unsurpassable. Durat means very difficult. It has to seem impossible to overcome. And Krishna does that with his pure devotees. He puts them in situations which are impossible, and then he delivers them from it, to encourage us that if we're also in situations which seem overwhelming and impossible, that Krishna's hand will be there and he will take us through it. Shroshasi Vinanshasi, Krishna says, if you don't hear, then you'll be lost. So all these tests, really the underlying problem is we're not hearing. And if we can hear the holy name, if we can hear the instructions of our senior devotees and the acharyas, our spiritual master, if we can hear, if that knowledge can go in, then Krishna will step in and help us. So our ability to hear is also our ability to hold the rope. Krishna's throwing a rope and saying, grab the rope and I'll pull you out. So your ability to grab the rope is your ability to hear. If you can hear very attentively, then you can hold the rope very tightly. I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada and he was saying, Krishna has come to save you. Now hold on to Krishna very tightly. So Krishna's strengthening our grip so that we hold on more tightly. Because maybe in the beginning we're a little bit casual about things and we think, well, maybe I'll hold the rope. I'll kind of just throw it over my shoulder and it's up to Krishna if he wants to yank me out. And then we realize that's not going to work. I need to grab it. I need to hold on for dear life. And then we get pulled out. The Shroshasi Vinanshasi. Now, if you don't hear Vinanshasi, then you'll be lost. Are you hearing? That's your connection with Krishna, your ability to hear. And he says, if you do this, then you'll become conscious of me, and then you'll pass over all the obstacles. So the obstacles are really just a symptom of not hearing and a symptom of not being conscious of Krishna. That's all it really is. It's just one form of not hearing or another, of not being conscious of Krishna or another. And also sometimes you may feel, well, maybe I'll be conscious of Krishna, maybe I won't be conscious of Krishna. It's optional. I'll take it or I'll leave it. And then Krishna kind of gently breaks it to you. Well, actually, it's not optional. You have to become conscious of me, otherwise you're not going to make it. Yes, Janan. So did everyone get that? If the only obstacle is not hearing Krishna, what about bad weather? Of not being conscious of Krishna, yeah. And what about bad weather? I mean, you could be really conscious of Krishna, but it doesn't make the sun shine. It may still rain today. And if you've got a hole in your shoe, then you could be really conscious of Krishna, but the water still comes in. On the other hand, it could be a really, really nice day, and you could have a brand new pair of boots, and everything materially could be fine. And you may think, well, everything's okay. Although you're not conscious of Krishna. So do we judge our well-being by how we are materially situated, or by how we're situated in terms of our consciousness? So if your consciousness is good, then although the weather is bad, it won't be a problem. In fact, they say the weather is the grossest manifestation of the three modes of material nature. So we're trying to rise above passion and ignorance. So it's a rainy, rainy day, the weather's horrible, it's in the mode of ignorance. Can you transcend it? Or are you down in the dumps? Matrespas to Konti. Krishna says not only to tolerate the weather, but he says also not to be disturbed. How are you going to achieve that? Tolerate? Not just tolerate, because you could be tolerating it and cursing Krishna and cursing everybody else under your breath because you're very disturbed, you're very upset. It's disturbing your sense gratification. But can you tolerate it and not be disturbed? You can only do that if you're conscious of Krishna. So sometimes these problems are put there so that we can see the holes in the boat. We have a boat and we're going to sail across the ocean, And before you do, you take the boat out onto dry land and you fill it. You fill the boat with water, and wherever the water comes out, that you know they're the holes you have to deal with. So we may have holes in our consciousness. So Krishna fills the boat up with bad weather, and wherever there's problems and we're moaning and griping, that's where the holes are. Shishikorinitaya mai pashashi ki jai. So then you're on dry land, you can do something about it. Okay, I need to patch this one up. That's a really nasty attitude I've got. I'm really ungrateful. That was really vicious. That was quite harsh the way I did this. Okay, I really need to mend these because I'm not going to last 5 minutes on the ocean with the boat in this condition. So you're getting a chance to see where your consciousness is failing. And when you can go out there and it's a rainy day and you can be so exuberant and so joyful and so happy, people find that very fascinating, actually. It's a very interesting phenomenon to be approached by somebody who's above the modes of material nature, manifested by his indifference to the bad weather. And then you say, I've got a book. And they're thinking, well, this must be a pretty good book because you look really blissful, but the circumstances look terrible, you know? So then that really emphasizes. And they say that that's why the pure devotee twinkles in the material energy, because the material energy is dark, black. And if you have a diamond, then in the spiritual world, everyone's a pure devotee, so it doesn't stand out so much. But a diamond on a black background really stands out. So if you're Krishna conscious on the high street in rainy weather and you're twinkling away, that really stands out. People are fascinated by that. People are buying things because people in the posters look happy. And they're thinking, well, that guy looks really chuffed. Maybe if I get that car, I'll be happy like him, you know? Or maybe if I get the ice cream, you know, maybe that girl will come from behind the palm tree. So people are thinking that they can buy that. And then they meet the genuine article, the Krishna conscious, exuberant, blissful, overflowing with compassion, ecstatic book distributor on the street. And they realize, my goodness me, that's what I want. Even more than the guy in the poster doesn't look as happy as this guy, you know? What's he got? Okay, let me take it, you know? So sometimes Krishna will put his devotee in situations which are difficult so that the devotee shines. And the devotee also sees then, well, a lot of things happen actually when you're in difficulty. But you become stronger as well. You ride through it and then you see how Krishna's hand, Majjhima can see Krishna's hand, you see. That's the fourth. There's four things the Majjhima Adhikari can see. He sees the devotee, the non-devotee, the envious, and he sees Krishna. He sees Krishna's arrangement behind everything, which the Kanishta can't. Kanishta doesn't really see how it's Krishna's arrangement, you know. So when the weather's bad, the Kanishta is very confused. What's happening here, you know? I'm out here to distribute books, and Krishna's, you know, can't Krishna have a way with Indra and tell him to back off? What's going on here, you know? So Kanishtas get confused very easily if the circumstances and the facilities are not according to suit them, you know. In fact, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains that if you don't really have a taste, then you're only in the kirtan if the person singing sounds like Elvis Presley, and he can play the harmonium like Liberace, and then okay, kirtan's okay, you know, I can sing along to that. But if it's someone singing and he sounds like a foghorn, and he's playing the madanga like me, it's like, okay, I think I'll just take a rain check. I'll come back later on for the class or something, you know. So according to your level of taste determines your level of ability to appreciate. So when you have a strong taste in Krishna consciousness, then even if the prevailing circumstances are difficult, you can still relish it. You can still appreciate that this is Krishna's mercy, this is Krishna's kindness, you know. When we say Krishna consciousness, what we're really meaning is Krishna appreciation. Because Kamsa was conscious of Krishna, but he wasn't appreciating him. So we don't want to just be conscious of Krishna. We want to have love for Krishna.
There's an online comment from Laura. I will read it out.
Hare Krishna, Laura.
So many tests that are hard to see that have come from Krishna. But as soon as we see his hand in them, it makes it easier to overcome. Surrender is a process, and these tests are part of the process of surrender.
What was the first bit?
So many tests that are hard to see, they have come.
So many tests for the heart to see.
Yes.
Okay.
That are hard to see. they have come from Krishna. But as soon as we see his hand in them, it makes it easier to overcome.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a nice comment. Yeah, it's in the ability. I mean, we're trying to develop our ability to appreciate Krishna's mercy, and where that ability breaks down is when it doesn't go according to our plan. And like it's only Krishna's mercy if it goes according to how I plan it. You know, I'm planning to go to Tenerife. There's that story, isn't it? There was this family were really poor, and they bought tickets to go to the Titanic. They'd saved up for. Oh, ruined the story now. Anyway, they saved up to go on this trip, and the one boy got sick, and they were wondering, well, should we go or should we not go? You know, and it was a big decision. They were thinking, well, we can leave him behind, but because he's so sick, he may die. We can't be sure that anyone's going to look after him well enough, you know. So they just cancelled the whole thing, and he lost all his money. And the next day, it was the Titanic that the ship they were going to be going on, you know. So then he was like, you know, they were all like really angry at his son for being sick, you know. And then the next day, the son was the hero because he'd saved everybody's life. So sometimes your ability to appreciate Krishna's mercy will require a certain amount of patience and toleration, you know. Just tolerate the situation right now and just wait. You don't understand why you can't go on your trip on the Titanic. Don't get upset. Don't throw the towel in. Don't become offensive. Just wait your time, and then you'll see it was some arrangement again by Krishna to save you and protect you, you know. It is always that way because Krishna is always our well-wisher. And the challenge is, can we appreciate that? Bhaktaram yagata pesham savaloka maheshwaram. Then all the pangs of material existence will disappear. Because we'll just be appreciating, well, that was Krishna's kindness that took place. It's Krishna's kindness I'm in this situation. It's Krishna's kindness I didn't go on the Titanic. It's Krishna's kindness I lost my finger in the duel with that blithering idiot of a prince who cut my finger off. Is everything Krishna's mercy? And then he throws the minister in the prison, and then later on he gets caught, and then he says, I can understand it was mercy that I didn't get, that I got my finger cut off, because otherwise they would have offered me to Kali, but how was it mercy that you were thrown in the prison? And he says, well, I have all 10 fingers, I would have been killed in your place. So Krishna's mercy and appreciation of Krishna's mercy is not always immediate. Sense gratification is an immediate thing, it's an immediate experience, an immediate stimulation. But Krishna's mercy is something which comes later after sustained endeavor and confidence. So you have to sustain those two things. You're out on the street with the book, with your bags, your bag of books, nothing's happening. Okay, you need to stay enthusiastic and confident over a sustained period of time now before it happens, you know.
Hare Krishna. I'm wondering, when we're in a position that's difficult, is it worth trying to look for Krishna's mercy, or is it just going to like happen when we're more advanced that we just know that it's Krishna's mercy, or we're actively trying to seek, you know, where's the mercy in this?
We may not be immediately able to appreciate Krishna's mercy. If you can reflect back on your journey so far in spiritual life, at the time it may not have been seen as Krishna's mercy, but now you could reflect back and say, okay, you know, this had to happen. I was going to get my PhD and suddenly it all fell through, which is good because otherwise I would have pursued this career and that didn't happen. And now I see it's Krishna's mercy because now I've become a devotee and things have worked out really well for me. So you have to give up attachment to your own plan about the way things are going to happen. They say that's one of the traits of a very advanced person spiritually, is he's able to immediately change if the circumstances change. He's very malleable. Oh, I was going to go out and do this, but this has happened, you know. Oh, I was going to go out and do something. Oh, there's a pandemic. I mean, when the pandemic started, I thought it was going to be, first of all, I couldn't believe it. And then I thought, well, it'll be over in 2 weeks. I was in Tesco's wondering why there was no toilet rolls on the shelf. This is really weird, you know. was thinking, oh, it'll be over in 2 weeks, you know. So I had my idea of the way I thought things were going to happen, and it was completely not what I was. So then, you know, some devotees were able to be very versatile and immediately adjust to the situation. And some were like, you know, and people in general were like, it took a while to adapt to this. Oh, this is going to actually be happening for quite a while, you know. And then eventually, just as we're getting used to it, then it goes back to normality. Somebody was saying, somebody had said to him, oh, I can't wait till things gets back to normal. And he was saying, well, normal was pretty rubbish anyway. So what's the point in hoping for that, you know? But that is the challenge. Can you appreciate? And that's why we read the books. Srila Prabhupada is guiding and helping us to disseminate, to assimilate the environment and help us to see. And you just get better at doing it as you go on. You start seeing it more. And then when you become very advanced, Trikaligya, like Haridas Thakur knew the prostitute was coming before she came. And he knew about, was it Ramachandra Khan that was making this whole arrangement against him. So he was already aware. So you really get put in the know. When you become very advanced, then you chant your japa and, you know, it's all, you already know what's going to happen before it does, you know. That's when you're really getting Krishna's mercy. When you're Srila Prabhupada was in the car and there was a car accident, and just before it, Srila Prabhupada braced himself, put his hand on the walking stick, braced himself, and then the car. And the devotees were just amazed. And the devotees got thrown everywhere. But Prabhupada realized what was going to happen, you know. So we aren't in that situation, unfortunately, because of being heavily affected by the material energy. And so a lot of things will take us by surprise, and they won't be what we planned. So we just have to develop the ability to just accept things as they are. And even if we cannot appreciate it, we can at least philosophically accept, well, it must be Krishna's mercy. I'll just need to continue on in my devotional service, and then later on that will become apparent, although it's not revealed to me now. One devotee, he wrote in his offering to Srila Prabhupada, the only times I regret are the times I didn't surrender. So although things may seem to go wrong, there's no excuse for not surrendering, you see. And if you surrender, then although it seemed to go wrong, it went right because you surrendered. And even if things go right and you don't surrender, then later on you realize they went wrong. There's a nice song by Mangalananda Prabhu called Hare Krishna Luck. And he's singing in there. He said suddenly everything went well. His dad won the lottery. He got a place in California. He got himself a customized guitar. Everything was going well. But he says, but then I lost my Hare Krishna luck. And then things went, and then Krishna started taking things away from him again. And then they came back, his Hare Krishna luck. And then towards the end he's saying, so I've learned that in life, when problems come, I just have to duck and remember this is just my Hare Krishna luck. So he has some really nice meanings in his lyrics, you know. They're full of realization. He's done the course. He's coming out the other end now. He's spent his whole life in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, it's an acquired taste. It is sweet. You can ask other people, you know, you're all sitting down to a feast and everyone's like, wow, have you tried that sweet rice? And you try the sweet rice and it's like, it tastes sour to me. And they say, well, just keep knocking it back. Eventually you start realizing it's sweet. Everyone else is saying it's really sweet. And you're like, are you sure it was sugar and not salt? It doesn't taste very sweet to me. No, it's definitely sweet, bro. It works. Krishna consciousness works. Siddhananda Swami, he went off to chant a load of rounds, and he came back and he sits down and he says, I just want to tell the devotees, Krishna is definitely God. Just in case you're wondering, you know, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, you know. Am I doing the right thing? Could I be making better use of my time? Well, if Krishna is God, then this is the best thing you can be doing. And those that seem to know are telling us, you see, you can't know that Krishna is not God. You can only know that Krishna is God. You can't know he's not. You can only be in doubt as to whether he's God, but you can't know he's not God. You can only know He is God. You can't know he isn't. You can have doubts, and we're here to try and work them out and overcome them, but you can't know that Krishna isn't God. Any final questions or comments? Yes, Panchita.
Maybe if you could just explain, I think even in the purport it mentions how the devotee gets material things that can be used in order for preaching.
Yeah.
And this is different to what a karmi getting material benedictions. And the same in the examples you're given of like Sankirtan or any other service. How do you distinguish between what is Krishna's mercy and what is, some sort of karmic thing? Or is it necessary to distinguish?
Well, the challenge is how you utilize it, how you see it. Do you become enamored? It's called Taranga Ranjani by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. He talks about 6 forms of unsteady devotional service. So it's Taranga Ranjani is Krishna decides to give you facility, and you decide to enjoy it. Wow, this is great. I've got this far out facility now. I've got this amazing huge car. Wow, great. I'm going to really enjoy this. And Krishna's given it to you to use in his service, but you've become enamored by it, So how do you use it? And if your service is unsteady, then that means there will be a tendency to be affected by facilities that come when you start to advance in spiritual life, because you become more articulate, you become more confident, more positive, more powerful. You become more attractive to people. So these are all the benefits. But how do you utilize that now? Do you become enamored and start thinking it's you? Or do you become humble and realize Krishna's been very kind and he's trusting you? He's giving you some trust. Are you going to utilize that properly? Are you going to reciprocate? It's a challenge, actually. That's Gauri Devi Das is saying like that. When you get the success, the challenge is, can you maintain your ability to appreciate that it's not you that's doing it, but it's Krishna that's doing it. And if you can, then you're going places. If you can't, then at least it's going to be unsteady. Your devotional service will be sporadic, So you just have to tune in to how you are going to accept a facility in such a way as it doesn't entangle you and distract you from devotional service, And sometimes the facility may come, and then the facility gets taken away. One time Srila Prabhupada, he said to a disciple, I order you to eat, because this disciple was like looking down his nose at everybody else, you greedy pig, and he was only eating a bit himself. And Prabhupada said, I order you to eat. So the devotee started really packing it in. He became quite plump, And then Prabhupada said, don't eat. Now I order you, don't eat. And then the devotee couldn't do it, because it was just him doing what he wanted to do. So Krishna can give you facility, but then if he takes away the facility, that won't be a problem if you are aware all the time that he gave you the facility in the first place. See with Jayapataka Maharaj, he's continuing on. And I was reading about his life history. There was so many times he should have died, and he just continued on, He just managed to keep going. So whatever facility he's got, he's using it fully in Krishna's service. That's like very advanced to be able to be like that. But generally, if we're going along and the slightest thing, I've got a rip in my trousers, I don't think I can do Sankirtan. I remember we were in South Africa, and we were driving down the road, in the way, a boot full of books, and there was just a little bit of a shower started, just like a normal day in Glasgow, and he just this amazing, like really dramatic U-turn. And then he starts heading back. And I thought we'd forgot something, He goes, what's happening now? He goes, we don't do Sankirtan in the rain. And when we got back, one of the devotees, he just ran into the room and he just jumped and slid into the sleeping bag. Just kind of jumped and then just landed in the sleeping bag. Haribol, Krishna's mercy. So we have to be careful if we become attached to the facility, and then the facility gets taken away, are we still enthusiastic to continue, That's the challenge. ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi.
Grace Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu ki
all of you.
Jai-